This is a pilot jack. It's a receiver built just after the Second World War, and it's actually an AC only receiver, yet it uses, as you'll see a little later, AC-DC techniques. The control knobs are held in place by spring clips. If a knob comes off, it allows the spindle here, which is metal of the control, to be live to anyone's finger, because that will be live to the mains with this set. Not a good feature. I don't like these push-on knobs very much at all. I much prefer a grub screw fixing, as long as the grub screw is sealed with wax to prevent any contact with the finger. And the set's a fairly big one, as you can see, and it's got 4 controls, which means one of them is probably a tone control. I've not looked too much at the set, so I will know a little later. But assuming a tone control, 3 bands, and a live speaker and a live set, this would have cost a fair amount of money. The significant thing about this chassis is, although it's AC only, we have a small transformer here. This isn't a full-size mains transformer. It is a heater transformer. All it is doing is supplying heater power to the valves. The chassis itself is actually connected virtually directly to one side of the mains. Often someone touches it, a child for example, a fatal shock could ensue. There's no way Pilot would get away with building anything like this in today's safety conscious times. The only reason I can see that they would use such a small transformer is to save money, keep the costs down. The basic chassis is fairly corroded, and it's obviously very dusty. It's not had any attention. Exactly what this is hard to say. It may be an axonal aerial lead or something like that, but there is an aerial on the end here in the form of a frame aerial, a basic frame aerial. So we don't know. We've got a mains lead cut off short here, so possibly there's been some problem and someone's decided to take the safe way out and chop it off. Or maybe it was bought at a sale, and sale rooms tend to cut the mains lead off for safety. It's a standard speaker, no question of it being a mains energised type. And we've got a standard 2-gang tuning capacitor here. And these, of course, are the IF transformers. And we've got extension loudspeaker sockets, pickup sockets. Again, a little dodgy, pickup sockets with a live chassis set. These will be isolated by capacitors, but in the age of capacitors taken into consideration, they're going to be very dodgy components indeed, and to try to run this as it stands without replacing those capacitors is really asking for trouble. Well, here we are looking at the underneath of the chassis. Point out some of the salient features to you. The controls along the front there. We have here a rotary double gang wave change switch. The one control you can't see is in fact the tuning control, which is mounted outside, and it's the one that runs the tuning cord around the drum on the tuner. These capacitors are electrolytic, and they're low voltage ones, 25 volts working each actually, and are probably bypass capacitors for cathodes. Here you can see a wire wound resistor, which is clearly in series with HT. There doesn't appear to have been much done to this set, damage done to it that is. It looks pretty original. You can see waxy Hunt's capacitors all over the place. If they're not Hunt's, they're TCC, and nobody likes these types of capacitors. Certainly no vintage restorer likes them very much. 1 or 2 will say to you, well, they're not too bad, but invariably they will be found to be leaky, and they're not good components to leave in a set. As I said to you, that the capacitors would isolate the pickup sockets, and in fact there is 2 capacitors. There's one you can see, the other is hidden down the side of the chassis, and they are waxy capacitors. Obviously, as I said, dangerous and must be replaced. No one should ever use the pickup sockets on this set. In any case, live chassis technology doesn't lend itself to that type of thing, and they should never have fitted pickup sockets. Here you can see a small pulley with a cord coming around it. The cord is wrapped around this spindle behind this bracket here, and as you turn the spindle, the cord and pulley turns, and you may notice that the pointer will go up and down. This is the cord drive system, and it wraps around a drum, which I'll show you in just a moment. This cord system was very common on many radios for many years, and is probably fairly straightforward to replace in this case. Some sets, however, are very difficult to record, particularly some of the Philips sets, which are rather notoriously known as string engineering systems, where you have to have some kind of degree in that matter in order to replace and work out how the string goes. But this one is a straightforward example and shouldn't give anyone any bother if they need to replace the cord at any time. Well, here we can see the drum with a cord going round it, directly connected to the tuning capacitor spindle. Notice how the cord goes around various pulleys and carries a dial pointer up and down as the drum is rotated. Fairly standard system, as I said, and notice also the two bulb holders here which give illumination to the scale. Here you can see the frame aerial system, a twin coil wrapped around and held in place simply by 3 blocks of wood. And here we've got the chassis in the process of being cleaned. If you look, you can see that the framing of the top of the transformer has been removed, the clamp top, and it has been sprayed actually with a rather nice chrome effect. There it is, and that will go back in place on the transformer once we get everything else completed. The rust so far has been partly removed, as you can see, by the use of wire wool, damped with WD-40. The half that hasn't been cleaned is pretty obvious really, and that's the situation so far on the top of the chassis. The chassis is now primed with a grey primer, ready for its top coat. Everything that could have been removed from the top chassis has been, smoothing capacitors, tuning capacitor and so on, and everything that has to be left has been covered over very carefully to prevent paint getting everywhere it shouldn't. Severe rusting on the loudspeaker has been cleaned off using wire wool and WD-40, and also finishing off with T-cut metal polish. It's left some areas without paint, but that's not a great importance. Actually, it's not so much paint, it's probably a plating. But the component is at least clean now, including the transformer, although some spray has got onto the cone of the loudspeaker. Not that that's going to matter in the least. Now here's the cabinet, completely cleaned off and ready for refinishing. It does want sanding down lightly. I'll do that next. You'll notice that the opening at the front was originally painted with cream, and that's been more or less completely scraped off, and it now exposes the veneer layers of the actual plywood, so it'll have to be repainted. Down below here are the two parts of the front which are separate, the main control panel strip which was painted brown, and the little vertical divider which was cream sprayed. These will be refinished separately. Also the foot of the cabinet, which is in fact just visible, that was actually painted black, and that will be repainted along with the rear feet to match once the cabinet's been resprayed. So there we go, it's looking quite good. Just one corner repair there, and that corner repair has been filled with a mixture of coloured filler, two-part filler, and it will be sanded down, and once it's sprayed it'll hardly show at all. There's really very little else wrong with the cabinet. It was just the finish was so completely ruined that it had to be redone.
Secretaries announced new rules aimed at making police forces more transparent. Theresa May told the Commons that police chiefs will be forced to disclose their pay packages, and officers will have to reveal if they have second jobs. The government has been told the rules for its back-to-work schemes are unlawful and should be scrapped. The Court of Appeal's decision followed a challenge brought by a university graduate who was told she'd lose her job seeker's allowance if she refused unpaid work.